Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
After 20 wild weeks of football, it's all come down to this. The Broncos are set to take on the New England Patriots this weekend. And, Bozzy, it's a matchup that assures that my Boston friends are going to call me a traitor.
I'm sure you can't wait to show off your new Broncos gear.
Oh, for sure.
If you don't mind bundling up and braving the expected snow this weekend, Denver is hosting a public party to support the team. That's tomorrow afternoon in Larimer Square. You know, fans might be nervous about this game. Backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham is stepping in for Bo Nix in what could be the most important game in his career.
So, Jarrett, who, as we all know, is a huge fan of this podcast.
Of course.
You got this, man.
For sure. Kickoff for the AFC Championship is this Sunday at 1 p.m. I'm Bozzy Kanani.
And I'm Marlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, Colorado has a new way for people to report misconduct by federal agents. What are your rights when it comes to ICE?
Even though we know that, ICE is really operating, as a rogue agency, is trying to agitate and escalate, we ask that people keep calm.
Then, Colorado gives up on bringing in more wolves, at least for now.
This is, I think, a sign that the wolf program is on life support.
Plus, a local musician and radio host who performs with pop music legends explains why you might also want to listen to more music like this.
It's Friday, January 23rd. Here's the news in Colorado today.
You don't even live here! I'm sure that you've seen at least some of the videos. A family fleeing from their car after having it tear-gassed. A man getting pulled out of his house in his underwear. The endless videos of immigration enforcement clashing with protesters in Minnesota. I know that for myself, it's been hard to look away. Colorado hasn't seen that kind of immigration crackdown or unrest, at least not yet. But the issue is on many minds.
I think we've seen in the past few years a lot of horror stories coming out of what ICE has been doing.
That's one of hundreds of people from across the Front Range who were in the small Weld County town of Hudson earlier this week to implore the city council do anything it can to prevent ICE from opening a new detention center there.
You, as Coloradans, have an opportunity to take a stand against what is undoubtedly a large-scale violation of civil liberties and human rights.
Having a nearby facility in this community is going to put this entire county in the crossfire of violent interactions that these ICE officers have shown to regularly bring with their presence.
The ACLU of Colorado obtained documents that suggest ICE is working with a private contractor to reopen a prison in Hudson and use it to hold detainees. Hudson town leaders say they have no power to stop that from happening. Also this week, Colorado's Attorney General added a section to its website to allow people to report alleged misconduct by federal agents. AG Phil Weiser told Denver 7 that tips may be shared with local district attorneys and the state's members of Congress.
Over the last year, we've received over 180 complaints around federal agents acting in ways that citizens felt were harmful, illegal, and concerning. We want Coloradans to know that we're here, we're listening, and we're prepared to take action to defend your rights.
In Minnesota, ICE officers are knocking on doors and stopping and questioning people on the street. And a recently leaked memo shows the Department of Homeland Security has authorized agents to force their way into homes using warrants that have not been approved by a judge. All that has left people in cities across the U.S. wondering, what exactly is ICE allowed to do? CPR Justice reporter Ava Kian is here to help us answer that very question. Ava, let's start with basic rights. Federal immigration agents, what can they ask you to do? And more importantly, what can't they ask you?
Yeah, we've seen videos of federal agents questioning people about their place of birth. The agents can't force this information out of you. They also legally can't enter a private business or home without a warrant. And there are key differences in how a valid and non-valid warrant look.
What do you mean by that?
So there are reports of ICE agents presenting warrants that they themselves have signed. But that's not legally valid. To be valid, a warrant needs to be signed by a judge, and it needs to have accurate information about the person the agents are seeking, like their name and address.
Now, Ava, it increasingly sounds like ICE is playing by completely different rules. I mean, just yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance defended the use of administrative warrants, not one signed by a judge, to enter people's homes.
Our understanding is that you can enforce the immigration laws of the country under an administrative order if you have an administrative warrant. That's what we think. That's our understanding of the law. That's our best faith attempt to understand the law. Again, this is something courts will weigh in on.
While that is playing out on the courts, what do civil rights groups tell people about interacting with ICE?
They encourage people to not answer any personal questions. People have the right to stay silent in those situations, and also the right to an attorney before disclosing any personal information. It's something that Naida Benitez, the director of organizing for the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition, said the group emphasizes in their trainings.
We do walk them through magic words to remember, like, I do not consent to a search. I'm going to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer. Am I free to leave? Have I done something wrong?
There's even an app she recommended for that. It's called Know Your Rights for Immigrants. It walks people through their basic rights during those encounters, and it does it in various languages. In all cases, they recommend staying calm and attempting to de-escalate.
This makes me curious. Did ICE say anything about how the public should interact, or not, with their officers?
No, they didn't respond to my request to participate in the story.
Now, as we mentioned before, the public's rights to videotape ICE has become part of the general discussion. Your reporting emphasizes that the law does allow people to videotape ICE at work.
Yes, both the ACLU and the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition said taking videos will help document these events and enforce justice, especially when the government agency's narratives conflict with it.
But if someone wants to do that, what should they keep in mind?
Both groups recommended keeping a safe distance. Here's what Tim McDonald, the legal director of the ACLU of Colorado, had to say.
People are 100% within their rights to express their views peacefully, without obstructing law enforcement. That includes filming officers.
The coalition gave some pointers about taking videos. One thing that stood out to me was announcing that you're grabbing your phone before you start reaching into a pocket, so it's not mistaken for a weapon. The ACLU recommends observers in those videotaping stay far away enough so ICE won't perceive them as obstructing justice. And after the shooting of Renee Good, it may be safer for observers to exit vehicles, so that ICE can't make the argument that they were facing danger from an observer.
Ava, I want to wrap up with something that you heard from Benitez, something that was striking. She said that knowing your rights doesn't really help if ICE agents aren't following the law.
Basically, advocates say, based on what they've seen across the country, there's no guarantee that ICE agents will respect the right to protest.
Even though we know that, ICE is really operating, as a rogue agency, is trying to agitate and escalate. We ask that people keep calm, right? Going back to, we can't really control others, but we can control ourselves.
And I'll note, earlier this week, an appeals court in Minnesota said ICE can use tear gas on peaceful protesters. We haven't seen a crackdown like that here in Colorado yet. But the people I talk to think it's a matter of time.
CPR's Ava Kian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlo.
A last-ditch effort to build up Colorado's gray wolf population just fell through. CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, has been scrambling to find replacement wolves after the feds blocked a plan to bring new animals from British Columbia last year. CPR's Sam Brash.
The Trump administration sent them a letter a few months ago saying, you're planning to obtain these wolves from Canada, and that's not allowed under the Endangered Species Act.
But after months of searching, CPW released a statement on Tuesday that it was giving up, at least for now.
It contacted Northwest states like Oregon and Washington, tribal nations in the same area with wolf populations, and they were unable to find any wolves to reintroduce to Colorado.
CPW had a 3-year plan in place to bring new wolves to Colorado each winter, part of an effort, the agency said, to establish a population with long-term viability.
It's not really clear what that means, but Colorado Parks and Wildlife has been pretty upfront that they think they need at least 3 years of reintroductions, and they wanted to reintroduce between 30 and 50 wolves to get the ball rolling.
But CPW may have bigger problems making that happen. The federal government has threatened to revoke Colorado's ability to manage its wolves.
And it also could mean that the federal government would get involved and say these wolves are harming cattle, and the federal government itself could kill wolves if they wanted to. So, effectively, this is, I think, a sign that the wolf program is on life support and that the federal government might have an interest in shutting it down.
When I mention the CPR classical station, you probably don't think of this. When you're gonna still be Bloody Mary. Or this. But if you were at those performances by Lizzo or Lady Gaga, you would have heard our newest classical host. And she is here now to make the case that if you like those pop songs, you might also like listening to more classical music, like this. I'm going to ask Monique Brooks Roberts to explain more about that classical song choice in just a moment. But first, I'm pleased to introduce Monique, who has just debuted as a host on CPR Classical. Welcome, Monique.
Thank you so much. Hi, Bazzi. I'm so grateful to be here.
You are a classically trained violinist, and our listeners may have already heard your work. You were in the orchestra, on the strings, in those clips that we just played of Lady Gaga and Lizzo. But, Monique, pop music is not actually where you got your start. I wondered, how did you, as a young Black girl in Louisville, Kentucky, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, find classical music?
Yes. Well, I begged my mom to let me play the violin for years. And finally, right before I turned 9, she took me to the music shop and I was able to pick out my own violin. And I remember taking it home, just staring at it, like in the case. Hadn't had any teachers yet, just staring at it, completely enamored with this instrument. And so fast forward to that first violin lesson and I walk in and who do I see holding a violin? A Black man whose name was Bennett Higgins, may he rest in peace. And he was a wonderful violinist and jazz saxophonist. And it was in that moment, I don't even know that I understood the impact at the time to see somebody that looked like me play this instrument. But I believe it was very instrumental in me starting to start this beautiful relationship with classical music and my violin.
I can imagine there's a lot of music teachers out there that hear that story and it just really warms their heart. You loved violin so much that you decided to pursue a career in it, one that took you all over the country and the world to collaborate with various artists, various genres. Now you're taking on a new role, a radio host focused on classical music. What is it that excites you about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. What excites me about this new role is really showing the listeners that there are so many intersections of classical music with other genres. You know, classical music was my first love. If you're a violinist, 9 times out of 10, your pedagogy is going to start with classical music. And so I fell deeper in love with it, not only my instrument, but I fell in love as a listener of classical music. And classical music, unfortunately, has been gatekept for a lot of its existence. And so I'm really here to show the audience a joyful way to experience music, a beautiful way, and the juxtapositions between classical music and other genres that so many people are inspired by.
And you started doing that right away at CPR Classical. In your first day on the air, you helped your listeners connect classical music with modern music. Here again is one of the examples you used.
So what you just heard was the opening violin solo run of the Brahms Violin Concerto. So the violinist is standing on the stage waiting for their big entrance, and that first virtuosic run is what Alicia Keys took and put in her song Karma. She she and her producer took that, and that is in the music industry is what we call a sample, where you take a piece of music and you take a musical element from something and it can live in a completely different genre, a completely different space, and have a different impact, but it can live in both worlds. So you heard the beginning, and now in this Alicia Keys song, you're going to hear how violinist Miri Ben-Ari takes the beginning of that Brahms concerto and makes it into this Alicia Keys song.
I've heard that Alicia Keys song, Karma, so many times, and I never heard the Brahms in it until now. So thank you for that, Monique.
You're so welcome.
Monique Brooks Roberts is a musician and now a host at CPR Classical. You can stream the station online or find it on the radio along the Central Front Range. It's at 88.1 FM.
Additional reporting for today's show also came from Denverites Kevin Beatty. Thank you for listening to Colorado Today, and if you hear something you like, share it. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.